That would be fantastic.
Okay, today is Wednesday, October 30th. Time is 5:30 PM. Calling the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting to order. Present on Zoom is Mike Cappers, Donnie Kern here in office,
And Chris Dubeck.
along with Andrea Otto and Bob. And I believe I don't know what's going on there, but until that gets fixed,
I'm Brandon Crone is on as well.
Okay, sorry, Brandon, I can't see it yet, because we don't have it out.
That's all good.
Okay. And a couple other individuals, open up the meeting, we'll have public comment, we should have public comment on this, to discuss this. 2 minutes per person. Topic is the budget. Anybody online wish to give their comments on anything? There's nobody in the office or in the village hall. Okay. Hearing none. We're on to next item, finance, discussion of proposed general debt fund and capital improvement budget funds in 2025 wages.
Before we start, Josh Lowe is on Zoom, and I asked Ellers to provide a comparison on the
On what?
mill rate for
Okay.
the taxes, so I don't know if you want to have him go first.
That makes
Um,
sense.
Do you mind if I make a quick request? This is Josh. I'm just getting my computer online and it's seemed to have some trouble ramping up, and Sean did most of the analysis. I know that he's expected to be on the call soon. So if we could go a little bit later, that would be much appreciated.
Sure.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
I believe in the packet, then you can just interrupt whenever you're ready, Josh, and we'll just take you right middle stream here. We'll take a break up when you're ready, okay? See the packet here of the 2025 rework budget worksheet here for today. Also, I received capital outlay and debt. But I think the debt hasn't changed, right? So we can kind of, we won't have to worry about going through the debt. That budget worksheet has already been provided and nothing has changed on that.
Yeah.
The capital, do you want to do capital improvements and come back to the budget, or do you want to go through the budget and then do the capital outlay and capital improvements? Whatever you're comfortable with.
It's your call.
We'll start with the budget worksheet then. We'll work our way down through that. Didn't we estimate, didn't we look at raising the estimated, on the blending, building permit fees? Weren't we gonna take that up to 100,000?
I did. We're at 75, so.
Right? I think that's what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
And I think then that also corresponds with what we had for inspector services. We had that at 60. Were we gonna take that up to 80 or 85,000? What number do you wanna raise that to?
I would do 85. I think it's 15.
I apologize.
85.
85? My hearing aid batteries died on me, so I'm gonna have to keep asking. So
Okay.
I apologize in advance for that. Okay. Any other changes on page 1?
I did add in, sign permit fees. It's the second to last line on, sorry, I have to do both. Page 1. I did $575 for that,
Okay,
and that was just a stab in the dark here, right? And then on plan commission fees, Tasia and I talked about that. And, it's $250 is the fee. So we said, let's go with three fees collecting. So that's at $750.
well, last year we had 300, the year before that we had 2,500. So I guess that's, at least you got something in there.
Yeah, yeah, it's, you never know
Mhm.
what's
Right.
gonna happen. That is all for page 1.
Anything else on page 1?
No.
Questions? Mike,
No.
page 2? We talked about athletic field usage fees being. Did we get any change in there?
No.
Okay. Was there a payment made at all by any chance on that?
No.
Okay. Any other questions on? Okay, so this is from 9/9, so will there be an update, I guess, going into at the end of, I think we talked about this in October, right? When we get into November, would it be
I'll update
October, October's actuals through the end of October?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on 2? Page 3? There's a little bit of a big difference in the budget, 2,856,000 in revenue. It went down 2,826,000 from last week.
It was what, last week?
Last budget meeting, the 25 proposed budget was 2,856,546.91.
Oh, cause I lowered the levy amount. With the changes that were made to the expenses, I lowered the levy to reflect those changes.
So the revenue is just less?
Cause your tax levy amount is part of your revenues.
Changes on 3.
Just to touch on what you were asking previously about the dental insurance.
Yep.
The department heads met and decided to stay without the dental instead of switching to principal.
So we put that on for next month, our next meeting to get that approved, because it's
Yeah.
not on this agenda.
Yep.
And so those costs wouldn't change then?
Correct. The, reduction in health insurance, by switching to Medica is reflected in today's numbers.
Okay.
How many page down?
445, 887 under general government. From 452. Just trying to figure where that change was.
That would be the insurance,
Sorry,
the insurance, and employee benefit.
so that went down?
Mhm.
Okay. Because we were proposing. But we were figuring for a 12% increase,
Correct.
and it's only a 2% increase, right? So there was a 10% savings,
Yeah.
equates to that $7,000 number, right?
Yep.
Mike, any questions on page 4?
None.
No, it's on, page 5. That. It dropped about 422.
No, that,
About $7,000 in the police budget.
that's going to be different than what's printed there because I upped the building permit fees to 85,000 just now, so here's your new number.
No, I'm not there yet.
Oh,
I'm under police budget,
yep,
under
that's,
public safety.
yep, that's public safety. Here's your new number,
Is it 12?
79,422.36.
That's higher than. Okay, explain to me what happened there. You said what?
We increased the permit, the building inspector services from 60,000
We took
to
that 25.
85,000.
25,000, right?
Yep,
Okay,
so it went from 1,254,
Gotcha.
42236 to 1,279.
I'm with you now.
Okay.
I forgot the building inspector was in public safety.
Yep.
But prior to that change,
Mhm.
there was actually a reduction of about $8,000 in that budget.
Yep,
And that came from the insurance.
yes,
Okay. So there was 8,000 less in the public safety budget reduction because of insurance savings
mhm,
from what we had originally figured, and there was an additional,
25,
say it again?
additional 25,000.
No, I'm saying, under the. Three. Under general government, there was a reduction too.
Mhm.
Of 7,000 because of insurance.
Yep.
So there was 7,000 there and 8,000. If my numbers are right, or close to that, we're looking at about $15,000 in savings between general government, and public safety so far in insurance. Savings, correct?
Sean said he is connected now. If
Pardon?
Sean
Yep.
from others is on. If
You wanna, right there's a good spot to stop then. You wanna stop at public safety and let Sean on.
Okay. Stop.
You okay with that, Mike?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I like Sean and Josh.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon or early evening, everyone. Can you guys hear us okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna share my screen. But I think I need Andrea or someone there to give me the permission to do that.
I gotta figure out how to do that. They changed. Here.
There you go.
There we go.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
All right. Are you able to share now?
Oh, there we go. Hold on one second. Okay, can you guys see a spreadsheet?
Yep.
All right. I'll go through this and just for the group, the approach we're taking here is really a big picture approach. So we're at we're at 50,000 square feet, or 50,000 feet, not square feet, 50,000 feet. You guys are looking at it both at the high level as well as I know getting into the numbers more directly in specific line items. This is really a high level look. So what we wanted to show, and we've worked on this with Andrea on this spreadsheet, is a comparison of 2024, the current year we're in, with the 2025 budget year with different assumptions. So let's start with 2024. On the spreadsheet at the bottom of what I have in the screen, you can see I broke it into 4 categories that comprise your levy that gets spread over the total assessed value of the Village of Somerset. And that is your operating levy, capital levy, debt levy, and then the TID levy there's a village share, a school district share, county share, and a tech college share. This is the village share from the current year we're in, 2024. When you sum those 4 numbers together, you come up with a total levy that was spread over the assessed value of Somerset for taxes payable in 2024. Total number was just a little bit over 2,033,000. So when we take that 2,033,000 and we divide it by the assessed value, including the state assessed manufacturing value that's in the village, we come up with an assessed mill rate of $6.34 per $1,000 of equalized value. And then we're able to translate that into the impact of the village's share of total tax on different property values in the village. And this is really looking more at small businesses or residencies rather than looking at larger businesses. And that this chart is 100,000 to $500,000. So if I'm a property owner living in Somerset, the taxes, and my home is worth $300,000 or valued at assessed value at 300,000. My village taxes for this current year cost me $1,900, just a little bit over $1,900. Okay, we all good on that? Everybody's with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then we ran 3 other scenarios for discussion, and we can do more. The first one to the right of 2024, going again down to the bottom of the page, we had an operating levy from a preliminary projection of the budget, 1,537,000, capital of 326 approximately, debt of 194, and the village share of the TID levy is a number that gets calculated from the above 3 numbers, I won't go into all the math of it, but because of closing TID number 4, it's going to be a lower number this year. And in this case, it's going to be around $7,000 is what it's going to be. So the summing of those numbers is 2,064,000. And if we divide it by the Jan 1, 2024 assessed value of Somerset, which has increased from 321 million up to 330 million, the mill rate in that situation would be $6.24, and that would be about a 10 cents decrease in the assessed mill rate. And then, of course, that would translate to about that same $10, give or take, on every $100,000 of value.
And why is that? You're going up in the total amount. Is that because the assessed rate, the assessed value rate has increased by $9 million?
Yep. In this situation, if we took a percentage, the increase of the assessed value from 2024 or 2023 to 2024, going from 321 to 330, is more growth than the growth of the levy at the bottom, going from 2,033,000 to 2,064,000. So that when you have the value growing faster than the percentage of the levy, the mill rate will go down. That's what's happened here.
Gotcha.
Okay. We ran a second scenario in green, if you're looking at the screen. What we did with this one is we backed into a total levy that would result in basically the same tax impact as 2024. And the variable we used was we adjusted the capital levy. So we went from about 326,000 to 360,000 for that. That brought the total village levy from up to 2,095,000. And when you take the 2,095,000 divided by the 330 million in assessed value, then you come up with $6.34 per $1,000 of value, which is the same as the tax impact level for the current year we're in, 2024. And finally, we did a third option. And this option, I'm going to scroll over a little bit. What we were targeting here is, I think in some of our discussions about the tax increment districts, the committee and the board were aware that there would be a debt payment in 2025 of about 120,000, or about a shortfall from TID 5 of about 120,000, that we do not yet have revenues in TID 5 that we can use to make that payment. So when that occurs, we have to either fund it from savings, cash that the village has in one of your other village accounts, or we'll need to increase the levy in order to make that payment. So what I did here, and I just highlighted it and put this 120,000 approximately in the capital levy. It could just as easily be put in the debt levy, but for now it's in the capital levy, because I wanted to highlight that number goes from 360,000 up to about 480,000. So that's approximately $120,000 increase. If we chose to levy as part of our levy to cover that payment, we would need to bring the total levy upward, and that ends up being a total levy of about 2,215,000. If we take that 2,215,000, divide that by the 330 plus million in assessed value, the mill rate goes to $6.70 rather than $6.34 on the previous option. And that would be an increase for the village share of taxes, again, going from the 634 to the 670 of about 5.7%.
Or on a $300,000 home, when we're talking apples to apples, we're at 1901, you'd be looking at 2009, correct?
Yep, exactly. About $108, correct. Yep. Yep. So we could run this differently if there were different scenarios that the committee and or the board would like to see. But in talking with Andrea, she was, and we were kind of collaborating on trying to come up with something to give you the 50,000 feet view, as well as you're looking at the line item view as well. I heard you talking about that just as I joined, to kind of give you both perspectives. And I think it was a good idea. Andrea was hoping to get both of these to you guys to discuss, and she asked us to kind of do this portion of it. So we can run other scenarios, but we wanted to at least get this a couple of preliminary views to you so you could give that for consideration.
So backing up just a minute from the papers that you provided to us, it's a very good presentation too. I think, I completely understand what you put forward to us. But the question I have is, how does this scenario in kind of relate to what we have on paper here today? Because right now I'm seeing total expenses of 2,826,35, and I'm at 212,14, and I don't believe we have that debt payment in our, or do we have that in there?
That is not in there under, the levy portion. If you look at the debt, budget just for a moment, and I can pull that up. Maybe I can pull it up while you're sitting on here. So the first line is the tax levy portion, that 191,166.20, and then, about 6 or 7 lines down, there's a transfer from TIF 5, 117,483.32. That is the debt number. So instead of the TID being able to fund the debt fund with $117,000, that would come from the levy.
Transfer from TID 5.
Yep.
Andrea, do you need me to turn off my screen sharing so you can share everything with the whole group, or I'll turn it off if it's messing up what you're doing?
I think so. I don't think I'm sharing my screen now.
Okay, I stopped mine. So if you were sharing something that just with everybody, I probably was not allowing you to do that by sharing what I was sharing.
Sure. Okay, so. Do I remember what, did I answer your question?
I would have to say no. I thought you were in the process of pulling something up there. You were saying that the 117,483 on the debt, that would be not borrowed, then that would be paid for, or what?
Instead of, the, TID 5
Right?
being able to pay for that debt payment, it would come off of the tax levy. And eventually TID 5 would pay back that money once they started getting value and were able to collect.
Is there a portion of that can be paid, or does it have to be all or none?
I don't have the TID values yet.
Yeah, if I could jump in here, the TID will probably generate a few $1,000s, TID 5 this year. I think the value is 600 or 800,000 in captured increment value for 2025's revenue collection. So it won't be anywhere near the 120,000 that's needed in 2025. So we would need another funding source to cover that payment, and that would be either the levy or from another fund of the village, like Andrea had mentioned.
So back to my question though.
Yeah.
Is they were at, on their spreadsheet up there, when he was sharing, I think it was, I got it right here. It was 2.2, I'm sorry, let me get back to the original. A scenario of 2,064,723 or 2,095,44, and I don't see that anywhere near. We're at 2,008,26.
Right.
So we're like 800,000 different, 750,000 different. I'm trying to figure out, you know, where that money is at, because he was showing our operating levy at assuming, you know, if we just stayed with normal growth, that we'd be at 1,537,360 on the
Capital.
capital, thank you, capital levy, and then 190 on the direct levy. I think, what did I forgot? I put the acronym
Debt.
down.
That
Levy, and then, of course, the TID levies.
so,
That's 800, not quite, that's 700,000 less than what we have in our expenditures right now.
okay, so if you look at page 10.
Yep.
It's showing you those levy numbers. The general levy is 1,537,000. But our revenues are 2,851,000. It's the last page of the longer sheet. So if you look at the total revenues, so not all of the expenses are covered by the levy. There's other funding sources such as state share taxes, the street aids.
Oh, okay,
So,
that's, okay, that's not split out, so
Yeah.
that's the different revenues are all together in there, that
Yes.
makes it up, so our actual levy is right at the numbers that Sean was sharing with us.
well, no, because, last meeting, there was money added on capital improvements,
Mhm.
which made it, to 402,000 for expenses. And we're only factoring 360
Right,
for,
so that was prior to that.
yep. On Sean's sheet, I think it was 360.
Right.
It
But
you're right, Andrew, it was 360.
Right, so was the 1,537,066 taken into consideration the $15,000 in savings that we've already had from the
Health
insurance?
Yep. Yep.
So now we have a decision that we need to make, is what I'm hearing, in regards to whether or not we're going to borrow from another
Another fund,
fund,
yeah,
or if we're gonna levy towards our TID for, the 120, and basically borrow from the taxpayers until that TID starts performing.
Yep.
Sean, do we have an estimated timeline on when that's going to start performing?
Yeah, we've got a couple different projections that we can get out back to you. You know, this, you may recall, it came up with the residential discussion that we had this past summer. And the key is really gonna be, the development around that residential. And then the, development on the south part of the TID number 5, south of the freeway, and what activity, if any, is gonna occur down there. So we've got some projections of the amount of development you'd need to cover all these costs and pay back any advances or coverage that the village makes in the short run. At the end of the day, though, it necessitates getting that development going in the ground. We can show you the numbers, but obviously the work has to start to really get those numbers to become a reality.
Right, so the TID payment is this year, there will be one again next year too, yeah?
There is, right. Now, I think we are gonna start seeing some revenue of a higher amount as the Growing Wings gets into the ground and as they start to build the residential. But, and I think there's one other building out there too, if I'm forgetting, but that's gonna need to get going to create that revenue. And you're exactly right. If it isn't going, the 120 will be kind of a built-in number to the budget that would have to be covered each year going forward.
But if we levy for it this year, and we hold to that, we would have the money to cover the budget, the 120 payment minus any kind of additional revenues for next year, is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah,
Until
if you build it in this year, you've kind of got it into your baseline at that point. So there is some logic to doing that, because then it's part of your budget. And hopefully what'll happen over time is you can move it out of the budget to be, or recategorize it for another part of the budget in the future. But for the next year, for sure, maybe a couple of years, you'd have it into your baseline budget to be able to have a source for those payments that you've already committed to with past action of the board.
we talked about this a little bit way back when. I'm trying to remember, I think we were saying that we could borrow from one fund,
Mhm.
but I don't know what that fund would be when we had that conversation.
Mhm.
Because we talked about, do we wanna borrow from a fund until it starts performing, or, and what I was wondering is, you know, maybe if we have a little bit of that money and then we levy for a little bit of it,
Mhm.
you know, in other words, half, we'd levy for
Do
half
and half.
and then find half somewhere in one of our other would it be capital outlay that we borrow from, or what fund could we, or the bridge fund, or
Well, the bridge fund has been
broke?
borrowing money quite a bit.
Well, that's why I'm asking. I don't,
Yeah.
if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. You can't, yeah.
Yeah, there's
money.
nothing there.
There's no turn,
We have a CD, but that's,
not enough
we
though.
can't take, well, it's enough, but we can't take anything out of it at the moment because
Yeah.
it's in the CD.
So
I
back to my
think
question,
we can,
do we have, are we gonna look at outlay then? Are we gonna be borrowing money out of outlay for the, I mean, if we said
Well-
60,000, that would be a $50 payment on anybody that's, you know, $50 increase. In the, you know, a $300,000 house.
um,
And we also increased another $40,000. That wasn't part of that conversation too. So even if we weren't looking at that, we'd be looking at, you know, instead of a $50 increase, more like an $80 increase to cover those additional
Yep.
outlay deposits, right?
Yep.
Or we stay in the red with
or-
the outlays that are in the red
mhm.
and figure out when we start borrowing, and maybe pay that back when TID starts performing.
Right.
That, I guess that, I'm just putting the options out here for discussion. Mike, you got any input on that, or you see any other? Am I covering everything all right, Sean, on this? Or does it sound like I'm,
No, I think you guys are hitting on the different options and trying to figure out the best way to go about it. I like where your thought process was going is maybe understanding where the balances of other funds that could be potentially used in the short run. Cause I'll say from past experience, if you're going to pull from some other funds, there's probably a time limit on how long you can do that. And there's also a restriction on how much, because at some point you're gonna spread a problem that TID 5 has to, say, the sewer utility or the water utility or another fund, and then that fund has cash flow problems. So it can
Mhm.
build on each other. It kind of takes us back to the key is the development and getting that going. So those are the points you want to continue to wrestle with to find a landing spot that's gonna work best.
So that's kind of what I was asking is, when do we, when, I'm trying to remember the synopsis that was laid out to us about when that was going to start looking to perform, at least getting some of that to where it can cover the debt service.
Mhm.
That's where I was looking at. If it was a
Well-
2 or a 3 year time frame from the time that it starts moving until the time that it's actually covering debt service before it gets to that, because I know we're gonna be into it for sewer, or the sewer and water is getting taken care of by the developer on that one, right? So, you know, that's not gonna be an issue there. It's really gonna be in the levy.
Yeah.
Was it 2 years, 3 years?
Well, for instance, Growing Wings.
Yeah,
For 2024, their value was the land and maybe no improvements.
No,
Right.
Now, for January 1, 2025, it'll be the full improvement value because the project has been completed, so that will,
we'll realize that. And
yeah,
I think they were
and that'll be
anticipating,
for 2026.
right?
Yeah.
I'm not unopposed to raising the mill rate a little bit because that helps the TIDs too,
Mhm,
because all that money goes to
right,
the TID.
yeah,
That's why I'm saying, but I also don't wanna, overburden the taxpayer either, so I'm trying to find the happy medium here. I thought it was like in 2 or 3 years, I wanna say it was like 3 years, that thing is gonna be close to being where we'll be able to
yeah,
say it'll
so,
perform.
just for information, Growing Wings is planning on adding the 2 more buildings, not just one,
Okay,
and they have a date that they have to do that within 2 years.
is
He's
it 2
gonna-
years on one, Bob, or is it 2 years on both?
No, 2 years on one.
Okay,
So
so
then another 2 years
Okay,
after the
but-
second.
they're not trying to expedite that, like,
They are
okay,
trying to, because he said it's become too expensive to build just one, and the demand is higher than they anticipated. So he said, we just need to build both of them at the same time. The multifamily, they're hoping to start moving dirt, the day after the board meeting, this, in November. So they're hoping to get foundations going and everything, as long as we get all the permits back and the village board putting out developers agreements. So that'll be realized, in 2026. So there'll be a lot of stuff coming, and then I anticipate more development after that multifamily coming in there, because that's gonna.
but the multifamily is kind of a pay-go type
It is a big
situation,
one,
right? The only one that we can really realize anything off of is Growing Wings, which is good news, really,
mhm.
right?
For the first, 3 years with the multifamily, but they have to hit dates though too.
Right,
And they have to meet minimum valuations, so anything that goes over the top of that,
Got
we
it.
keep it.
okay, all right,
So there is some value in that.
right. I don't wanna be too over presumptuous on what we're gonna anticipate to get from them. I know if we increase our levies though, that pay-go would go back to them, wouldn't it? Unless they go over their valuations. We keep that extra.
It's spelled out in that. in the language.
Yeah, I'm just looking back at some of the numbers. I think we agreed to, was it 3,950,000 in pay-go incentives to be paid to them from their development. And if they create enough value to pay that, we'll pay it. If they create more and we pay them the 3,950,000 back, we would get the difference above that. But it's gonna take some time before we would ever pay them fully back for the village to get that stream of revenue. I think the big win with them is they create a development area and they put in the infrastructure and they make the other lots that the village owns around their development more marketable because of the amount of people living there and the infrastructure being in the ground to have the lots that the village owns become better targets for development.
They'll be ready built, there'll be shovel-ready sites. Conversely, if the village were to do it, they would have the burden of the construction costs.
So the 1,537,066 that he put on there for the overall levy,
For the general.
operating levy.
Yep.
That's true numbers though, right?
Yes,
The only thing that would change from his numbers to what we're talking about right now is the 40,000 that was discussed at last month's or last meeting, right?
mhm.
Anybody else have any questions?
I like your idea of splitting it between raising the levy a little bit. And then funding that until it can pay for itself.
Well, the other question I have is, are we going to agree to the, or are we gonna look at putting that 40,000 additional on top of the current capital levy? Now that we know these numbers, because if we're gonna be direct levying even half of it, then the other question is, what funds would we be borrowing against and for how long?
Right.
You know, so that's gonna be the other caveat to the whole situation, so we know, because we don't wanna overburden those funds as well,
Mhm.
especially if in, you know, next year, we're doing the same thing over again, having the same conversation for additional, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which I got a funny feeling that we're gonna at least be talking about it next year on TID 5. And then maybe after that, if they're up and performing, then we probably would be covered. But next year, for sure, I'm sure we'll have the same conversation about TID 5. On the debt service.
Right.
The purchase. Monies. For the land on that TID 5 for that developers agreement. Is that gonna be used towards paying the debt service?
Yeah, they will be paying for the land up front. So there's a purchase.
But that ain't gonna be till next year.
Well, that will be a closing in November,
What was it? What was the amount again? Was it like
266, I'd have to go back and
a
look.
couple hundred grand? It would cover the debt service, right?
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, cause I think that's what I thought we had this discussion kind of figured out that it was like, well, we got this, it'll work. That's why I'm. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
we did show 200,000 coming in. I think on some of these forecasts, but I don't recall the exact timing of when we thought that money was gonna be available for the village. Cause that could, if it does come in, that could also be a funding source in the interim to cover some of these debt expenses that TID 5 has.
Yeah, I thought it was 266,000. That would be a closing
I'd have to pull it up in an email.
this year.
Is that on for November, the
Yeah,
purchase agreement?
yep, the developers agreement, everything is going to be at November's meeting.
We wouldn't expect any revenue until 2026 at least, right?
You would receive the cash payment for the purchase of the
I think
land.
they want to do that this year.
Correct,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, because they wanted to get it on their tax rolls for this year. So. Well, then that's a question. So were we anticipating on using that? That purchase money towards our debt service? And then I think we were saying that we actually have the money coming in from Growing Wings for year two. That would help to offset some of that as well, because it was like, we really shouldn't have been having it. I thought there was a process that we had already kind of ironed out in a path that would, if this was gonna work, that it wouldn't be burdened on the tax, taxpayers, because it's almost like it was self-performing.
Yeah, if we could get the timing of that payment, we can update a forecast for TID 5 and get that over to the committee to look at. And then we could also do another one with some projected development coming in the future. So you get a sense again as to how or what is performing, what do we need to get to be performing?
Well, eventually we wanna get to the point where we don't have to worry about the debt service until we can get it to actually start paying the debt off. Right?
Right. Yes, correct.
And it seems to me like that's what I was thinking is that. I think we do the debt, we look at the debt service, or, the payment to cover debt service. But we still got a $40,000. Mike, are you on here?
He said
what-
he had to leave.
Oh, that's right, he's gone.
It's, I'm still listening in, but I, in another meeting as well, so I don't
Okay,
can't contribute much.
um. Can we see what we got on that? Because if it, absent of anything coming through on that, that would probably mitigate our conversation on this TID, right?
Mhm.
If we bring in 200,000, even if we brought 200,000 in, our debt payment, debt service is only 120. And we still have next year's, evaluations to come from Growing Wings, yeah.
Yeah.
That would help to offset that. So on $120,000 valuation would be $100 per person, or per $100 on a $300,000 house. So making that assumption that if we left that 40,000 on there, we'd be basically asking for, people that have a $300,000 house to pay about $40 towards the additional capital outlay. If we kept that on there.
Mhm.
And that, these are very, very rough numbers, but I mean,
Right.
in general speaking, we're still asking for a tax increase. To cover. Well, one is to balance out that one, zero out that one, and the
Mhm.
other one is to put some money towards the fire truck, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're asking for. I think. Do we have any other funds that are in the red? That need to be looked at in the capital outlay? I asked for that info, but I didn't see that in this. I just wanna make sure that we're not looking at any other ones that we need to zero out anytime soon.
Um, There's two funds, street maintenance and parks. Or sidewalks / trails, and that's from those projects that will be covered.
Hold on a second, let me get there.
Oh.
Parks,
Mhm. Okay.
and you said. What was the other fund?
Street maintenance. Mhm.
Is that one down?
Mhm. Getting there. Oh, my screen sharing is hot. No, okay.
On the money that comes in from parks, on the Pine Val, does that go towards the capital outlay for park improvements, or is that going to the general budget and then funded back? Cause I think we took like 24,000 in from Pine Val for them to pay for the parks. Does that go to the general fund or does that go to park outlay?
It's supposed to go towards something near that development, so,
It's in a restricted fund.
he's kind of. Street maintenance is 168,000.
It's 168,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in the red though.
Yes, 168,000 fund, but,
Negative 168,000.
yep.
And we put in 15,000 towards it,
Mhm.
under this year's budget, and we're looking to put another 22.5 for next year, right?
Yep,
Okay.
but there's also funding from the borrowing that we did towards that.
Was that okay?
So, and then sidewalks, trails is also negative. And that is.
But that, I think we were talking about is because of the cap, right?
The TAP grant,
Tap grant.
Our TAP grant, we're getting some money back on.
yeah.
So that's kind of a skewed number, because we're gonna
Yes.
get reimbursed on that.
Yeah.
Are we
So
gonna do the
both
same
those
thing?
are actually skewed numbers.
Okay, so we're gonna get money back on the.
Yeah.
Okay. So no other ones, just that one for, the shop edition one, right?
Yep,
And we're truing that up.
yep, and then we're also truing up the, sorry, Brenda. There was another one.
The fire trucks and sort of one.
So many things open. Oh, we're not training up, but we're adding back to the village hall outlay.
There was some consensus between you and I about realizing tax dollars coming next year
Mhm.
and not necessarily this year on new development. I feel like next year is gonna have a better representative of the homes that were built in the last 2 years.
Right.
Cause we've got that
Mhm.
lag and realizing that when assessments are done.
Right,
And a lot of those are on the lot and not the improvements.
well, just from 2024 to 2025, looks like we grew about 3% just in our valuations.
Mhm.
$9 million, over 300,000, 3%. So next year, we're going to have an additional, that plus any kind of, evaluation increase as well, right?
So it may make things easier to say, well, we could address some of these next year. It might be better because the pot might be a little bit healthier versus trying to arm wrestle and stuff everything in this year.
Right,
Especially when we're trying to outlay things for maybe a 5-year purchase on certain elements that, well, we'll get there. And the other thing maybe worth noting is doing that 1-year initial borrow and then paying that purchase on equipment, for, fleet. Smart cars, work trucks, and those types of things might allow us some flexibility in The capital, like,
Right, the biggest thing, I wanna make sure that we're not just kicking the can down the road, and that's why I think by looking at, you know, TID 5, making sure that it's gonna stand on its own, and that's kind of what we all agreed to when we went through that scenario. And that's where I think, when we come, well, we're gonna borrow $120,000, wait a minute. I had to sit back for a minute on that, but at least getting some of these numbers on the capital outlay where it needs to be. I don't think it's unreasonable for us to. I'm trying to remember now. It was 11,000 for the shop edition. What was the other one again that I didn't quite hear what you said. You said something about the
Oh, Village Hall outlay.
word.
street sweeper, that's a $15,000 add-in this year, that's a paid off piece of equipment, correct?
Yeah,
That's another area we could, want to go next year because
The which one?
the street sweeper.
Yeah. Well, we got the snowplow, we gotta look to buy too. And I was kind of hoping that we might be, you know, swinging some of that over that way on that 1-year borrow type deal, right?
Right, yep, exactly.
mhm.
So as we get this as we get the sweeper paid off, that's a tongue twister. And
The
as we
sweeper
get
is
this,
paid off.
huh?
The sweeper is
Right,
paid
but
off.
it's, that money's going next year. Right?
It's basically a zero increase from 24 to 25.
But there's a $15,000 allocation into that,
Mhm.
Exactly.
so that's one that. For an example, you could choose to just delay that payment a year.
Mhm.
And I don't know where Joel's position on some of his outlay is.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna speak for him, but he's not here.
He was on Zoom.
But we had how much in outlay for the village, the hall?
10,000.
10?
Mhm.
That's only 21,000. There was something else that
Fire truck?
how much did we increase that?
50.
How much?
50.
50,000.
Mhm.
Well, my math isn't coming up right then. We increased that by 50 and we increased the village hall by 10 and, the shop addition by 11. That's $71,000.
The 10 was in there already. That wasn't an add-on
Oh,
from
okay.
last week.
So where'd the 50, the,
So the 50,000 on the fire truck and the,
I got 42,000. Is from 360 on capital outlay to 402 is
So
what you
we're-
told me.
yeah, we're at 61,000 right now with the 50,000 on the fire truck and then the 11,000 on the shop edition.
Okay, so that's where some of that, you know, look at for next year. Do you want a full 50,000 on that this year, or do you want to slowly start growing that up?
Good question.
Well, I could defend the argument that we're gotta buy a fire truck, so, you know, whatever number you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with in that regards, and 11,000, that's just paying off debt.
Mhm.
So we're just paying that off. So, I mean, anything here we're talking about, I can defend to anybody, taxpayers wise. The real question is, like he was saying, we got other things that we wanna get and provide and stuff like that. We can do that through growth. And, you know, some of our options and that we have with, you know, being able to borrow for a year and realizing some of that additional growth. So I guess, what is your,
I believe last week you said 35 to 40, so,
I like 50 better,
yeah.
honestly, if we can afford it.
Right.
anything, what I'm hearing is anything that we're asking for is gonna have to go towards, you know, as an increase in the levy towards the taxpayer. So we'd have to be looking at an increase in taxes.
Mhm. But
If the mill rate goes from 6.24 to 6.50. That would. In essence, be about, I think if we ran that
Sean,
Is he here yet?
yep, can you, I'll stop sharing. Can you pull up your comparison again?
Yep, sure. Just give me 1 second here.
Well, first we need to find out if we can get the money in. If not, then we have to have a decision to be made
Mhm.
on that, right? So if we can get payment for the land purchase prior to the end of the year, then the TID 5 conversation is moot. Right?
Mhm.
Because that's paid for. If we can't, we gotta have a contingency, right?
And that land payment is in the developer's agreement as included and that's the first thing, that purchase agreement, or
Okay,
the purchase is part of all of that.
okay. So. Pretty confident that we're at the point of finishing up our discussions and finalizing the developers agreement at board meeting?
Yep, we had a meeting today and I said, make sure you go through that developer's agreement and let me know if you have any comments, so I get it to Paul and, yep.
Okay, so then it's a moot point. We can utilize the purchase monies towards payment of the debt service on that,
Mhm.
on TID 5. And the rest of the money was staying there, but I still wanna circle back to what we're looking at here for. If,
So he changed his worksheet,
yeah,
that
Yeah,
green
so,
column.
yep, if you went to a target assessed mill rate of 650. The levy would be, 2,148,000, of which 7,000 of that's the TID levy. So 2,141,000 approximately is what you'd have for your own expenditures, the operating capital and debt.
right, so right now, currently before that, we were at 360 for our capital levy. And that puts us at 414 for our capital levy, which actually gives us a little bit more. And what does that do at the 650 for that $350,000 house? Would be looking at 1901, basically $48 for the year.
Mhm.
And
For a
that-
$300,000 property. Yep, correct.
So, which as a percentage wise, $50 on, I gotta do the math on that. On 19. That's a 2.6% increase in taxes. That's much lesser than what I was anticipating. I
Yeah,
was showing about
that's what I'm coming up
2.6,
as well.
right? Yeah. so
2.55 is what I'm coming up with, but it's
Oh.
real close, ballpark.
Okay. And that actually gives us the 50,000 that we have. We can pay off the other one. Do you, and do you want to just set the rest of that capital, the extra 12,000?
Mhm.
I'm not telling you where to spend it. Anybody got any ideas? Brandon still on here?
Mhm.
We're gonna have working, any needs that need to be fixed up, or do we use that money towards, the plow trucks or anything like that, Bob? Should we just let that money sit aside for the time being? And I was just looking at, if you went off that 650 mill rate, that assumes what we have for operating levy and capital levy, right?
Mhm.
And that actually gives us a $12,000 cushion.
Yeah.
Chris,
We don't have to spend that.
huh?
We don't have to
You
spend
could
it.
take it off, you
Yeah.
could make it 402 and then it would
There's-
be less than $6.50.
There's streets and sidewalks and roads and stuff like that. I would really like to see, I mean,
Well, let's put it in the streets, cause
I'm all for putting it in the streets.
We can
I'm all for putting it in the
always-
streets,
use street money.
right?
Yep.
Yep, sure.
So I'll
Okay.
add,
So put the
12,000.
12 in the street outlay.
Yep.
And that takes care of that. Are you comfortable with that number, Chris?
12 in the street.
No, 6.5,
Oh.
that mill rate of basically asking a guy that's got a $300,000 house or a family that has a $300,000 house to help pay $48 towards, the purchase of a new fire truck here in a few years
Right,
and to fix our roads.
yeah. I don't hear a lot of.
Raymond
argument.
Street.
I heard you.
I would rather build up that savings than have to borrow and pay more in the end. I don't think that's a huge ask for people.
At the end of the day, I mean, we got TID taken care of, so I think that's, the route I wanna go. If you're okay with it.
Brandon.
Sean, thank you for that, for putting that together. That spreadsheet really helps out a lot, especially even for people watching here, that they can see the difference in how we actually calculate your taxes and where we are at and where we wanted to go. So that really helped out a lot.
Yeah, no, our pleasure, and we'll work with Bob and Andrea on a little bit more info on TID 5 as that development agreement comes to finalization.
Hopefully you'll be seeing one here at the end of the month,
Uh,
something to be thankful for.
Sean, do you mind, just sending me that sheet and then I can share it with the rest of the board?
Yep, I will do that, Andrea, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
See ya, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so street maintenance, we increased from 22.5 to 34.5. But you can, I'm not gonna get anal on this thing. I'll let you work through that, but I'm just saying in theory, that's what it would kind of be at, and the rest of the stuff would stay kind of where it's at, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then we'd be at that 414 spreadsheet number, okay? Now, back to this levy deal, next year, I know our operating levy was at 15 mil, 1.1 mil, 537.66, right? That includes state aid, or that does not include state aid? That's strictly what we charge of the assessed values of the landowners here in the village, right?
That is strictly what we collect
Okay,
from taxes.
okay, so then the state aid is a different line item
Yep,
on the budget.
yep,
okay?
it's actually just below the,
Cause I'm truly concerned with
levy.
what's gonna happen with the levy, what our state aid is gonna come when they do their next year's budget. I think this will be the last year of that 2-year budget cycle, or is there one more year left on that?
22, 24.
So this will be the last year of the budget cycle.
There's one more year.
Which I'm fine with. I'm just, my concerns, I mean, we have what we have now. We've been given that information.
Yep.
That's gonna get us through this year, 2025. But there's nothing written in stone for us to be able to, other than what we have for our direct levy, here, of what we're getting for state aid for next year. Right?
Mhm.
Okay. What else? Capital improvement, we kind of resolved.
Mhm.
The debt fund, we resolved. Anything else on the budget? We were at police when we were there.
We just finished public safety.
I'm sorry, well, public safety, yes, you're absolutely right. So the next one is public works.
Oh, I'm not sharing. Where did it go?
Question I had, just a couple things, I was going through this. On the stormwater contractual services, SVC, that hasn't been used in,
It gets kicked out of capital outlay.
right, so that doesn't even belong under our general operating budget numbers, does it?
I will eliminate
Yeah.
the zero line.
Okay, that's right, because you got a recycling outlay and, the public works, health and dental insurance. That was the other one that's in there, and I didn't know what that one was.
And that's in all of these employee benefits.
Yep, so we've taken that out of one bucket and put it into all the different ones so we can
Yep.
budget accordingly, okay.
Yep.
So that's gone, okay. We don't have a recycling equipment outlay on our general anymore.
No,
Do we budget anything for sidewalks, improvements or anything like that? Or is it most of that done by the developers? I mean, we got the developers put the sidewalks in, right? But at some point in time, do we, like, what we did fixing of the sidewalks out here? Was that because we borrowed it, that it didn't fall under our general obligation?
Right.
Okay. So that's why that wouldn't actually be there unless we were saying, you know what, we're gonna budget for $50,000 worth of in general obligation towards fixing these.
Right.
Or assessments coming in, would that be, like say we assessed a landowner, that would come in and it would go under the general obligation, this budget?
It would help pay the debt on the project.
Yep.
Is essentially what the assessment would do.
Okay, so
So
well then,
our borrowing note would be, they would be a contributor.
so with 240, 390 and 820 of the sidewalks then? Cause we got maintenance at $4,000, I shouldn't say 240. Would the expenses and outlay improvements be eliminated then?
mhm.
Right.
Okay. I just didn't know if they needed to be in there, all right. Okay. $16 is where we were at, now we're at 09, so there was about a $6,000 reduction there, that's due to the savings in health insurance, right?
Mhm.
So we got,
And, property insurance.
so we're at 21,000, would you say property insurance was
Mhm.
up or down?
Some areas up, some areas down.
Is it a wash?
It's not a very large increase.
There was a question as to the Somerset the fund for the Somerset Foundation. Remember, we were gonna put money towards that on an annual basis, and we haven't done that in a couple of years. Is that something we might wanna look at maybe putting into this budget? Towards I think it's the Somerset Foundation, right?
Scholarships?
The community foundation?
Yeah, Community Foundation, yeah.
Yeah, I know we've given in the past, I know.
2 years ago we gave, and we were gonna do that, but we haven't. I'm just reminding you to see if there's something we might wanna put a $500 line item in that.
It's up to the board.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but I remember you recommending that we might wanna do that, and I'm just trying to, it just come back to me as I think, you're absolutely right, it's up to the board, but it does go.
And it's just one of those awareness pieces that, you know, we have a community group out there that's.
Yeah.
Trying to get some funds moving and we.
Cause I know we do something with the senior citizens, and last year, I think there was, something for Bruce Larson Fund, college, fund, right?
Yeah,
And I'm just wondering if we. I'm trying to remember how much that was.
These are days we give
mhm.
funds to.
Do we wanna itemize
The
something
Bruce
as-
Larson thing was 500. 500,
or,
Bruce Larson.
okay.
Good idea.
I would like to put 500 towards Bruce Larson, and I would like to put 500 towards the community foundation. I think that's a fair, will that $1,000 break us?
No,
Are you okay with that?
I am okay with that.
I am as well.
Well, it doesn't.
I mean, at least it's in the budget, and if they wanna exit out when I'm gone, they can.
Right.
Okay? So we just increased $1,000 to 2,500, okay?
I'm just gonna change this food pantry line item to just.
If you want, you can
community
delete it.
donation.
Yeah, yep. Oh, yeah, you can do that, that's fine.
And then I have it noted where it's done.
That's fine. Anything for library?
Not that I'm.
I don't think library changed at all, did it? I don't think it did.
No.
I gotta get to page 9 here, it's convoluted thing.
My copies went. I don't know. I was trying to get it this way, but it went this way.
Everybody's gonna be watching this, see how we go down, just fumbling through papers left and right, and not knowing that everything, it's upside down. Library dropped 2,
Mhm.
or is it the benefits? I didn't think they were with our insurance, did they do
Yeah, they
something
are.
different? Huh?
No, they're good.
Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there was some discussion, I thought she said that they were with a different, a different conglomerate for buying power for
That's
insurance.
not for insurance, that's for, equipment.
Oh,
computers
okay,
and
so
stuff.
this the $9,000 savings
Mhm.
is for benefits.
Yes,
Okay,
that. Not just for the change in, providers, but also, change in plan. So. On one of the employees.
okay. Well, I had a $7,000 savings, $8,000 savings, a $6,000 savings, and $9,000 savings. So far, what I was anticipated, and that comes up to $30,000 on that much. Just from going from a 12%, a 10% to a 2%, just in the 8% savings. But parks didn't change.
Perks will not change until I.
That's because they don't have benefits on?
No, they do.
Oh,
The Public Works Department is a little more, it takes more time to allocate all of the benefits and wages.
so there'll be something there?
Yes,
Okay.
there will be a savings there.
I know it's hard.
Hmm?
Yep.
I know it's hard.
I'm not, trust me, I appreciate everything you do, and if I could help you, I would.
Mm.
Any other questions on parks? There really is nothing changed, we just gotta wait for them numbers to come back on that, right?
Mhm.
Right. And one question,
Mhm.
the economic development contractual services, is that like paying MSA for certain things on? Okay, so on the other stuff that we contract MSA for, does that fall on mostly under our obligations here, or is most of that under either outlay or on the developers?
Well, I think you hit all of them.
Both, okay,
Yeah.
all right, I just, yeah.
All of the above.
But if we hired for an economic development type
Yeah,
deal.
that's conceptual planning.
Yep,
I
yep.
Need them to produce an exhibit for marketing or.
Got it, all right.
That scenario things, but
So what we got, that 2750 so far was maybe for having somebody do some, conceptuals on the property over here or
yeah,
whatever.
that, and then if I need engineering estimates on how much it's gonna cost to run a mile and a half of road.
Right.
And all the appurtenances for the water sewer storm.
Got it,
Those things will come out of the water utility, but there's some overlay into that.
okay. Okay. And I've got all my questions answered.
That was my last one, too.
Huh?
I was curious about that as well.
So we just got a couple things to get back on this switch,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then we to discuss the all-encompassing wages conversation.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna listen. Cause, you said you had some stuff and, to share.
mhm. So. I kind of gave you the summary,
I sent you an email back on that because I was questioning
okay,
how we got only 431 on a 0.5%, but on 1% we had.
okay, so I tried to make it a little easier, and this is as far as I got, so, This first set of columns here is 2024 pay, does not include the, non-union. Here is 3% increase off of 2024, 3.5, 4, 4.5. Then I have to come over here because not all of the clerk's wages go into the general fund. So here is 3% as put in the budget. And pretty much this is what would be put into the budget, 3%, 611, 555, 55. 614, 525.
So that'd be 3%, right?
This first column is 3%.
Okay.
Next column is 3.5.
Okay,
This is 4.
okay,
And this is what's in the budget.
okay, so then there was a number missing in your email,
Must be.
yeah. Because that's,
3,
3,000, that's 3,000, and it
369.
was $413 in there, I'm like, there's no
Oh.
way
Yeah.
$413 was the
Yeah.
savings. Okay, alright, so we're looking at 3,000 for a 0.5%,
Mhm.
6,000 for a 1%, and
9.
9,000 for 1.5. I'm not gonna make this decision. I think you guys are entitled, you know, you guys are worthy of that. I just
I think we stick with the 4-5. I think that raise is really good based on what the raises have been in the past. And seeing as the compensation for the police has rose, which they deserve that as well. But I think 4.5 is fair for everyone.
Chris,
We certainly deserve it.
pardon?
They certainly deserve it. But it seems a bit of a stretch. I guess I was leaning towards 4.
And the difference between 4 and 5 is how much again, Andrea? $3,000.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think for the $3,000, I mean, it sounds like we've done quite a few layaways stuff that we've discussed tonight. I think our employees are worth that extra $3,000. We spent that much. We spent more on goats this year.
Like Brandon, but I appreciate your input on this, and like I said before, my concern is that next year, if we, you know, we have to be kind of very careful with you know, everything across the board, and, you know, I've kind of asked around to see what, you know, what other places are, and town of Somerset is doing a 3% increase. You know, and we do a 4.5% increase. That is great for the employees, but it could potentially put us in a pickle next year if state funding doesn't come the way it's supposed to. We're taking advantage of some 3% growth in our evaluations this year too. That's given us some money to look at, you know, that 3.5% or that 3% next year isn't here, then there's gonna have to be some serious decisions being made at, you know, at budget time. And I'm you know, I'm concerned about that, that's all.
Yeah, and I hear you, Donnie. It just seems like, you know, looking at that even if it's at, you know, $10,000 for that difference of that 1.5%, really, I think we can come up with that.
Well, $10,000 over 10 years is $100,000. $100,000 is 5% of our budget in 10 years' time. So, you know, it does add up, and people see that, and you know, some people are coming off wage freezes, and I mean, I can defend to them that we're putting money away and we're saving up for, you know, public safety and as far as getting, you know, our fire hydrant and fixing roads and stuff like that, and I can defend wage increases. And having this spreadsheet is a good thing to be up here, because this does really put it out there, is like, you know, yeah, it's a $3,000 might be minimal, but it does add up over time. And it could lead to, you know, like I said, I say serious decisions, but I've always been a firm believer in giving everything I possibly could get, but without breaking the bank in the process. Cause if you lose a guy, well, now that guy is not getting that 4.5% because we had to lay a guy off because we didn't have the money in the funds. I'm not saying we're laying anybody off.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing I see is their workload is gonna be increasing, you know, with the trails going up, with the amount of trails, the just pure mileage of trails that are gonna be put in, and a whole other neighborhood.
Which
You know,
would
there's
increase
gonna
their
be more
budget,
work.
which factored into the overtime budget on the budget numbers itself. So that was laid out in, you know, in the factors for the public works budget.
Yeah, and I'd
This-
rather, it is if the overtime's figured in, right? But I know last year, you know, and those guys do count on overtime, and last year we didn't have any overtime, so I'd rather give them that base salary and then, you know, plan for that rain, you know, plan for that overtime, but I don't know, there's no way we could have utilized that much of the overtime budget last year with how much it snowed. Not saying we're gonna have a winter like that again, but I also want to make sure these guys have a base salary that they can, you know, I don't want them depending on overtime.
For the record, trails are not overtime generators. They do not generate overtime on trails.
But it's factored for,
It's wages. sure.
yeah, it's just factored as a wage aspect of it. I guess I'm willing to take this to the full board for a full discussion on it. rather
That's
than
what I
a
was just going to
recommendation.
say.
But I think for me, you know, I'm still at a, you know, 3.5% to 4% range. I'd love to do something where you say, here's some little bit of cash you know, give them like a cash incentive at the beginning of the year type thing. And 3.5%, and then we don't have to worry about that cash incentive in the next year if we don't have it to pay. You know, and they could get their 4.5% that way. If they put that money away, they would obviously be able to earn it. And I know it's a little bit outside the box of what the norm is, but you know, I don't want to put the next guy sitting in this position into a pickle if I don't know if I knew what he was getting, it'd be a different story, but.
I just feel like we've been very, very fiscally responsible as a group of individuals, always, for my entire time of working here for 28 years.
Sure.
We've been very fiscal
Yep.
and very conservative with our own selves.
Yep.
So.
But there's some things that we are also looking at doing and wanted to do and you know, that we're trying to.
Well, we're growing.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we were a stagnant community, I can see where there's a level of alarm, but at our rate of growth and our projected rates of growth, are very appealing, very strong.
And one other thing, sorry to interrupt you, Bob, but one other thing that just came to mind is, you know, we do have that new app where the guys check in. You know, I'm sure they're getting a lot more complaints from the community. I know I use that as a a log for them to do work when I see stuff. So I'd imagine there's been an uptick just in work in general. Is that a fair statement, Bob?
Well, but things are realized sooner and taken care of quicker, so it has
Yeah.
worked for it.
More efficient. Yeah.
The tough decision
And then
because
you-
we made big savings for the health insurance. So I feel like that would be nice to give it back to the employees if possible.
Well, there was no savings.
Well, I mean, it are projected.
There was a savings on paper only, really, and that's one thing that, you know, I mean, we're still paying the full. We meaning it's a minimal cost incurred by the employee and by the village at 2%, because they pay a portion of that 2% too, so. That's another benefit all across the board is, and, there was a little additional increase in dental, we're picking that up. You know, I don't know, I gotta think about this a little bit more. I'm truly torn on it. I really am, because I'm the kind of guy that wants to give as much as it possibly can. And I'm not necessarily mitigating that everybody ain't worth that. Can I ask, where did the 4.5 came from? The ask from the police department, right?
No,
No, police are getting substantially more than that.
Yeah.
That's where this is coming from.
Okay.
So if you wanna know where over the past 2 years, what those increases have been, and there has been steps and lanes. But whatever, it's the bottom dollar amount. That's becoming disparaging larger and larger, where non-bargaining employees are seeing that, and
Yeah.
going, well, what the heck?
Right.
Okay? We're talking 30% over 2 years on wages,
30%.
30%.
Share that with me. How did you come up with 30%?
If you take, you look at last year's wages and this year's wages, the past 2 years.
The bargaining unit got 6, 3, and 3, right?
yeah,
And then
That's
there's,
12%.
and then there's factored in steps and lanes on top of that.
Oh, I understand that.
Public Works have steps and lanes when they first start.
Mhm.
It's nowhere even close to that.
Right, well, the steps and lanes are different, I get that end of it, but so the 30% that you're figuring in is on the basis of the step increases of the police, right?
mhm.
Okay. But flat across the board, once they all get to the top. It's 3, it was 6, 3, 3. And I don't know what Public Works did before I got involved, but I know it was 3 last year.
It's always historically been 2.5% to 3%.
And the year before that, it was, I don't remember, because
That's what I'm telling you.
2.5% to 3%.
2.5% to 3% has always been our range.
Alright.
Okay.
And that's cost of living increases. Very rarely do we have a merit increase,
Mhm.
so that's the.
Well, let me ask you this, is something on the lines of like we were talking about cash. Here's, you know, $500 in your pocket type deal, and for this year, along with an increase, that's kind of like a cash bonus type deal.
And we're gonna invest that and get
Whatever you want, it's your money,
a year on $500.
it's your money, you can do it whatever you want.
I don't understand the amount.
I just have one other observation, and I really don't want to pit any department against anyone, because I'm for raises for everyone that deserves them, and I think everyone does. But since I've been on the board, my observation is that, you know, the police have gotten 2 new vehicles, they've gotten their radios, which I have voted for all of that stuff, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have it. But in that same time, I agree with Bob's observations, and we're not getting a new shop, we're not getting a new truck anytime soon. We are planning for that, but you know, we're kicking the can down the road on a lot of that stuff. And I think the guys have worked hard, and I think they deserve it.
And that's what I was saying, is that you got a cash upfront right here, right now. And then you get a percentage increase over the term, so the percentage goes on. into perpetuity, along with the cash kind of, thanks for all your hard work, you know, right here, right now kind of thing. You know, I'm not, you know, if it was $500 to some people, they might think, well, $500 isn't nothing, but, you know, $500 is, for a guy that's making $25 an hour is half a week's pay, you know? And again, these are just assumptions. But I know it's always been a difficult conversation. And that's why I continue to, I just want you guys to know, everybody, that it's not, I don't want it to be disparaging. Because you guys say, well, we want a 5% increase or a 4%, 4.5% increase, and you might not get it because or you get it this year, but then we're in a budget crunch, you know, next year.
Well, we've reduced our, ass plenty of years to balance the budget, Donnie.
Yeah.
Do
And
you wanna
we've
just
added
bring it
to
to the
it,
board then?
pardon?
Do you wanna just bring it to the board?
I think so. I don't, Mike's not on here anymore, is he? Mike?
He's Sunday with.
Yeah, I can still listen in, but I'm in a meeting right now, so it's hard to contribute.
I guess I didn't understand.
He's in.
What do you want?
Um,
Takes more than the business.
It's only discussion, so. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about, is that, we can hear, we still got one more, is this the final meeting?
This
of
is
the
the
budget?
final meeting.
yeah, to me, the minimum has gotta be 4, but I am kind of leaning towards the 4.5, actually. There's only $3,000 difference. But yeah, let's bring it to the full board, get everybody's opinion. That sounds good to me.
There's a motion to adjourn.
I can make a motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
All right.
Oh, motion carried. We are adjourned and it is 7:18.
Good night, everybody.